Welcome to the Naked Truth Art Project. This is the first episode of a series of episodes we're going to be taping in recognition of a project that I undertook so many years ago, about 10 years ago. The story is about how do we use art to confront social justice, or how do we use art to have people come together and have a dialogue. When I started this project about 10 years ago, I didn't know where this was going to turn into. Now we're doing podcasts. There are a whole series of things we've done in the process. Now we're starting a podcast. So I thought it will be another tool in my bucket of helping artists to use their talents and their gifts and their creativity to communicate their stories or to help heal with their talent. So this first podcast, although I am introducing it, but the series in the near future, we intend to have artists on the table having those conversations. So the question is, who am I? Who am I is, I am a Nigerian-born artist. I migrated to the United States some 40 years ago. I was running away from home because as a Nigerian, there were only 3 professions that I could actually do that would guarantee me, quote-unquote, success. Those 3 professions are engineering, being a doctor, or a lawyer. And I had the audacity very early on in life to pursue art. I was a gifted, talented artist from as early as I can remember. And I went to an elite school with the expectation of becoming a medical doctor. I actually started my career as a medical doctor, but I knew from day one that medicine was not something I would have been happy doing. So my other option, or what I might say my only option, was to figure out a way to do my art, but do my art without interference. That meant I had to run away from home. But to run away from home meant that I have to leave my country. And I wanted to leave the country as far away as possible. Going to Europe was not an option because it's just a 6-hour flight. So I decided to try the America. Had no understanding about the American culture, knew practically nothing about America, but have seen a lot of movies and documentaries. And actually in high school, we studied a lot, in our geography class, we studied a lot about the country. So when I decided to leave the country, I chose America. And I decided to come to an art school in a small city called Memphis, Tennessee. I've always wondered why Memphis. And looking back at my journey, I was meant to be in this city because of what I'm doing today, which is as a result of the dynamic history that this city actually has. So I am very grateful to be in the city. And I went to a small liberal art college called then Memphis College of Art, and then transitioned to do a master's program at the University of Memphis, all in the arts. So I have an MFA in fine art. And the initial intent was to teach. I figured if all else fails, I can always go and become a teacher. But again, I would have been one of the worst teacher the world would have ever produced because I am one of the most impatient person you ever want to meet. So I decided earlier on that I wasn't employable. And because I knew I was not employable, I had to now figure out a way to make a living as an artist. Some of the things I did earlier on were traveling around the country, doing arts festivals from one city to another. That was really hard. But I was focused, and I decided I was going to give myself 5 years to do this. And in the process, I was also looking at having a stable space where I can create my works and I'd also to exhibit my work. Because one of the things I ran into during this time I was touring with my artwork was there were very little opportunities for artists who are of my color. And I knew very earlier on that in order to have the kind of representation that I want, I need to actually create the space for me. And so, as God will have it, I was able to purchase a building on South Main, then a dilapidated, run-down corner of downtown, and transfer that area to what it is now as a vibrant art district. Purchased 3 buildings and decided to convert one of those spaces to my gallery while using the other spaces as a studio and my living quarter upstairs, which was the perfect arrangement that I was able to achieve. So that is my initial intro into getting stabilized in the city of Memphis. But then I started working and creating art and living the American dream, so to say. I opened a restaurant, really having a good time until 2006 or 2006, when I was diagnosed with cancer. And that was a wake-up call. That was a wake-up call because up to this time, I never thought about having an end to a life. I've always felt like life is forever. You live, because I was having a great time. But I think that was God's way of shaking me out of my comfort zone. I was comfortable. I had everything going right for me. And usually there are ways that the universe reminds you of your time on this universe and why you're here, and really seeking out your purpose in life. And I think that was one of those moments. And today, looking back, I could genuinely say that cancer was actually a blessing, because not only did it shook me from my comfort zone, but also gave me the space to really think about what my purpose in life is. I'm sorry, I get a little bit emotional looking back at how all that transpired. But I'm glad it happened because I started looking at life from a whole different lens and started really seeking the why. Why am I here? What is my purpose in this universe? What is the meaning of life? Those things we don't pay much attention to when things are good and well. So for that, I am very, very grateful. Today, I am cancer-free, and man, the way things have happened. However, So moving forward, between 2006 and 2015, I was in a survival mode, trying to survive, trying to figure it out, wondering how many more years, how much time I have left. And then something dramatically happened. In 2015, there was Ferguson. A young black man was shot and killed because, quote unquote, he stole Skittles. But it wasn't that he was shot and killed that really got my attention, but rather the way his body was left like an animal on the streets for hours. There were a lot of demonstrations that were taking place, but that was the first time I really connected with there must be a reason why God gave me this talent. At this point, I'm not the type who will go out and demonstrate. That's not my style. However, I started questioning God why, and really begin to dig into the stories, the various struggle of people whose crime was the color of their skin. And that got me. And so not soon after that was another murder which took me over the edge. And that was the shooting of Tamir Rice, the young 12-year-old kid in Ohio who was playing with just a toy gun, a kid playing with a gun in the park. And I think some white lady called the police stating that there's a black man terrorizing people with guns. And no sooner the police came, they loaded bullets on him, less than 3 seconds. At that time, I had a 12-year-old son, and for days I couldn't sleep because I saw his face. I saw Joshua's face in Tamir Rice. And right there, I knew I had to do something. I wasn't sure what it was. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something. And I would go to bed and I would question God. I don't understand who you are. A group of people, a race of people, just for the color of their skin, have to go through so much turmoil in their life. There must be a reason, and I want to know why. And in the process, I heard this little voice that said, I got you talent. I gave you talent. I gave you skills. Go use it. And that was the beginning of the Naked Truth Art Project. I decided I got to go back. Prior to now, for 15 years, you remember I was just struggling, trying to survive. But right then, I decided I was going to go into a studio and get back to work. And 10 years later, I have over 150 pieces of artwork, which tells the story of the Naked Truth Art Project. And the way the title of this project even came, that too is a miracle. Because I went to the studio, and I know a lot of artists who are there. If you've been away from the studio for a long time, there's a tendency for you to, it becomes difficult for you to get started. So 15 years, there was nothing happening. I went to the studio, for almost a year, nothing came. And I was wondering, how am I going to start this project? And I went to bed one day, and I started asking my question, why is it that we are actually fighting? What is it that is creating this chaos? The word truth came into focus. People don't want to hear the truth. Right there, I got the title. The word naked with truth really covers the title, Being naked means to be vulnerable. Being naked means to be ashamed or wanting to hide or protect. And the Naked Truth Art Project was the perfect title for this project. And once that registered, the rest is history. I went to the studio. It was somebody took my hands. I've never been so prolific as an artist. I mean, I was throwing out pieces after pieces after pieces and telling the story in such a way that I wanted people to connect at a space that is away from the noises, not the politics, not government trying to pass legislations, but where I know human beings connect, the heart. So the challenge was, how do I tell this story without alienating people, without people, once they see a piece, they drop, because we become so tribalistic. I didn't want people to just shut the door because they saw a piece. So I created the story. I told the story three ways. The first one was how we got here. I wanted to go back to how we got here as a country. And the first piece I did, which is titled Pluribus Unum, which became a signature piece of the collection, really focuses on immigration. And interestingly, that was almost 12 years ago. Today, we're still talking about immigration. And so in that piece, I used an umbrella as the shelter, but the umbrella was actually an American flag, designed as an American flag. Underneath it, where there's millions and millions of people who have come from wherever they came from to take shelter, except one group. And that group was the second section of my discourse. I wanted to ask, we got here, every one of us are immigrants, that's how we got here. What happened when we got here? Then I focused on the 400 plus years of slavery, which was the really most difficult part of this composition, to the extent that at some point I was so depressed because a lot of the stories I was researching and reading about were so foreign to me. As an immigrant, as an African, you would have thought I should know all of these stories. But no, because we never, and as I have been talking to people since doing this project, we were never taught about the struggle, the civil rights struggle in Africa. So I was so ignorant of the fact. And that is why today there are a lot of immigrants that come to this country, take advantage of the pain, the suffering, the bloodlet that African Americans have gone through without paying homage to them, without recognizing them. And that was an eye-opener for me. And the one thing I wanted to do was really tell the story from that point of view. So I created a whole series of works that took you through that story from the journey from Africa to the Americas and the civil rights struggles, the Black Code laws, emancipation, and personal individual stories that I felt people with heart can connect with. And then finally, the final part of the collection talks about, haven't told you how we got here, haven't shared with you what happened when we got here, 400 years plus of American story. What are you going to do about it? It's a call to action. And let me tell you that how all this came about is none of my doing. I'm still mesmerized by the way things came out. And in the process of doing this, I'm not an English buff. I'm from Nigeria. English is a tough language for me. In the process of this, I even was able to publish a book with the same title, The Naked Truth Art Project. And so I would say that I was chosen for this moment. I came to this country because this is where this can only have been done. I was planted in Memphis because this is the home where it all started. And ironically, the building I bought sits on the grounds of where Martin Luther King was shot and killed, right in front of the National Civil Rights Museum. So there are a lot of things we are going to be doing with this project. So I started with the visual, which is creating a collection of works that takes you through this journey. The next thing I wanted to do was take the work to the street, because when you think about it, not too many people come to the gallery or go to galleries. So my struggle was, how do I connect the story to the everyday person? And a brilliant idea occurred to me. I was in the restaurant one day just having lunch, and there was a family of 4 across from me, and I noticed the dad, the mom, and the 2 kids. Although they were in the same table, nobody was talking to anybody. Everybody was on their phone. And something a light bulb went up in my head. This is a technological, what's the word I'm looking for? A tech society. And people are so used to being on their phone. Immediately I said, if I can get this story in a way whereby people can use their phone to get the story, that would be immense. And that's where the idea of taking the work to the street came into focus. And I created a whole separate collection within this Naked Truth series that I called Untold Stories. Untold Stories take you through 400 years of American struggle, American history, the Tulsas, the Rosewoods, Memphis Massacre, all these stories that most Americans know very little about. I wanted to bring that and put it in the hands of people. And so I created a whole series, about 24 pieces in the series, and created and turned these pieces into tiles, which we manufactured in Italy, because it was the only place that I was told I could be guaranteed that we host or we have a tile that can last over 100 years. So the company I worked with manufactured these tiles with QR code embedded in them, and now we're laying them on the sidewalk of Memphis, Tennessee. That is my most prized accomplishment to date, because every day I walked outside my gallery and I see people scanning, and the aha moment on their faces is just priceless. So that is one way we've taken the work out there. My goal, God willing, is to have it in every major city across America and beyond. The other way we're doing this is connecting with people like we used to do back then, man. We used to sit in the table, break bread, and eat, and have conversation that makes sense. And I want to bring that back. So I started a series now called the Dinner and Dialogue series. We started this series locally in Memphis for about 6 years now, and this is the first time we're taking it out. We had the first one outside of Memphis in Dallas about a year ago. It was incredible. People connected with it. So now we're working on taking it to Atlanta and beyond. So this is how the Naked Truth Project is coming forth. And the one thing I've always wanted to do was have a podcast and invite other artists who are in the same space, using their work to tell stories or to connect with their community or to connect with people or to impact people in ways that they otherwise would have not been able to. We are living in some very dark times in this country. And as creatives, and I'm going to look in the camera and say this, that as creatives, these are some beautiful moments for us to use what God has given us to change the world.